Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and get started with our meeting. Good morning. Welcome to the Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group. I'm Corey Anderson, and I'll be hosting the meeting today. This is our agenda for today. Basically, we're going to have our welcome and general business for about 15 minutes or so. And then we do have a section during this part for member announcements. And that part is designed for you, the members of the user group, to make an announcement such as you have a job posting or you're looking for NetSuite work or something related to that. So that'll give you a chance to do that. You can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat. So be prepared if you do want to make an announcement at that point. Then we'll hear from our meeting sponsor today, which is Billing Platform. And then for our main presentation from 9 to 11, Suite Analytics Workbooks, and that'll be presented by Julien Le Bars of Oracle NetSuite. And then we'll have tips and tricks from 11 to 11:15. And then depending upon how much time we have left, we'll have our open forum up until about noon or so if everybody has lots of questions. So we'll move on here. First of all, I want to talk about membership. So the membership to our user group is free. You can register at RMNSUG.org. That will ensure you get notifications of upcoming meetings and events. It also gives you access to our LinkedIn forum. And if you're not a member, please go ahead and sign up today.
Oh, I just want to mention one thing about that. In order to win any of the raffles that the sponsors provide, you need to be a member. So they send us the potential links of the potential contacts, and then we go through and say yay or nay. So one more reason to become a member.
Yeah, thanks, Margie. And also just another side note, we don't share information, your information as a member with anyone. It is all within the user group. So it's all safe information with us. So you can find us. We have our website at rmnsug.org. We also have a YouTube channel. You can just go to YouTube and search RMNSUG or Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group. And then we have a LinkedIn forum, and that's the LinkedIn forum URL. You can also just go to LinkedIn and search for Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group. And I just want to take a minute to point out that we do record and post all of our meetings. So the recording of this meeting and then the slides from the presenters are posted on our website. You can go to rmnsug.org/posts, or if you're just go to the website and there's a posts icon, or I'm sorry, a posts link. I'll use my laser pointer. So right here, there's the posts. And then once you get to that post page, you can search here for all of our previous meetings. And we've done meetings on, I think, probably anything you can think of NetSuite related. There are probably a couple of topics we haven't done. Advanced revenue management comes to mind, but in general, we've done most everything else. So you can go there and search for our past meetings. Everything that we've done for the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years probably is posted on our website. So that's where you can find our previous meetings. Just take a minute to introduce you to the board. We are all volunteers for the Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group. We've been a board of 5 for many years now and continue to run the group in our spare time. So in the upper left-hand corner, that's me, Corey Anderson. I'm the principal and NetSuite consultant with Stratos ERP Partners. Then we have our sponsorship and member chair, Margie Cominos of PlantScan Corporation. Then we have our communications chair, Mike Kackline of Vertifor. We have our speaker chair, Peggy Evleff from RSM US. And then our treasurer, Dana Larson, NetSuite consultant with Dana Larson Consulting as well. So thank you to the board of directors for everything that you do to keep this user group running. I certainly appreciate it. So we have a happy hour planned for this coming springtime. And so that is going to be Thursday, March 28th. Actually, I don't know if that's spring. That may still be winter yet. I don't remember when the cutoff is. But anyway, Thursday, March 28th, it'll be from 5 to 8 p.m. The location is the Schoolhouse Kitchen and Libations that is in Old Town Arvada. And so this is a location we haven't been to yet, but it looks pretty cool and looks like a nice space to meet. We're going to have food, drinks, we'll have adult beverages, and then of course, networking. So there's no presentation here. This is about getting together and just meeting local NetSuite community members and having a good time. So save the date. We'll send out a reminder for that as we get closer to it. I don't think we're doing an RSVP, so you don't have to RSVP for it, but go ahead and put it on your calendar. We'd love to see you in person if you're in the Denver area. Also, we have coming up in February a NetSuite Learning Lab. So this is a new thing that NetSuite is doing. I'm not quite sure how long they've been doing it, but I'm pretty sure it's the first one in Colorado. But anyway, February 15th, it'll be from 8:30 to 1. There's going to be coffee and I think light breakfast, and then there's also going to be a lunch served. It's going to be at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Denver. And the content, there's going to be two options for the first session. So SuiteAnalytics, so introduction to workbooks and formulas and saved searches. That's probably a little similar to what we're doing today, but a couple of other things. Or there's a using NetSuite financial tools to budget for your business. So that's the first session. You can choose which one you want. And then session 2 is called the continuous accounting. Your team and business will thank you for it. So this is put on and hosted by NetSuite. We will have representatives from the user group there. I'll be there. I think Dana Larson is also planning on being there. So if you have a chance to attend this, I highly recommend it. I will post a link to this in the chat window after I'm done with this part of the presentation. I'll post that link so you can go. You do have to register in advance for this NetSuite Learning Lab. Pretty excited, so hope to see you there. Okay, so now is the chance for you to make an announcement. If you would like to post something, a job opening, anything that you want to announce as a member, I'm going to go ahead and pause for a couple of minutes and just if you want to unmute yourself, or you can post something in the chat window. So any member announcements?
So Laura, again, has been developing a bunch of plug and play apps. I'll drop our new website in the chat, but yeah, just a bunch of apps to make your life a lot easier. If you are a different solutions provider, feel free to offer them to your clients as well, things like that, because we can sell them to you as well. So just want to make people's lives easier, a little cheaper as well.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Any other announcements? All right, going once, going twice. Aaron, Customer Success Manager, DC Cap, first meeting. Thankful to be here. Okay, great. Thank you, Aaron. All right, so if you think of something later, please feel free to post something in the chat window looking for a job or any job announcements in the NetSuite space. Go ahead and do that, and I'll go ahead and move on. So we do evaluations. The evaluation survey will be sent out today. Please take a few moments to let us know how we're doing. We do read and act on the feedback from the evaluations. It's just a NetSuite custom or a NetSuite online form. And so go ahead and fill that out, let us know. And it gives us ideas of what to do for future meeting content, how we can do things better. So please fill out the evaluation. So as a reminder, please use the same email to RSVP as the email that you received the meeting invite. We try to maintain individual member records. We do use a production NetSuite account to run the user group. So we try and maintain deduplication of our member records. So if you received an invite to the meeting with different email addresses, you can email rsvp@rmnsug.org and have the extra email addresses inactivated. We'd appreciate it. So meeting sponsorship, membership to the user group is free, like I mentioned before. The cost of our meetings is supported by 2 levels of sponsorship. We have Suite App sponsors and consulting sponsors. Suite App sponsors must be available through suiteapp.com, and consulting sponsors must offer NetSuite consulting services and have certified NetSuite consultants on staff. If you are interested in sponsoring a user group meeting, you can learn more and by going to rmnsug.org/sponsorship. So we are very excited. We're finally ready to offer CPE credits again. Thank you to RSM US and Peggy for helping us coordinate this. So for this meeting today, to qualify for a CPE credits, there's 2 credits available, and there will be polling questions throughout the meeting that you must answer to be eligible for the credits. You must have also registered for the Zoom meeting with your correct name and email address. And so the polling questions you have to fill out, and then correct name and email address. And then the CPE credits will be mailed to you. I would say, Peggy, are you on within
Yes,
a
I
couple
am.
of weeks? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are we thinking a couple of weeks for the,
Yeah, probably, I'd say 3 to 4. It takes a little time for our CPE folks to process stuff. Also, people need to stay connected to the meeting as well as doing the interaction.
that's right.
So, but yeah, figure 3 to 4 weeks. This is my first time doing it, so please be patient with me. I have powers that be that do, hold me accountable for stuff. And like I said, this is our first time. The process that RSM uses is a little bit different from our last sponsors, so please bear with us. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peggy. So yeah, we're this is our first trial run of our CPE credits. So like she said, please bear with us. We're going to do our best to make this a smooth process. So thank you again, Peggy and RSM. All right, next slide. So upcoming meetings, we have our March meeting. We are planning on doing a new concept called How to Be a Great NetSuite Administrator. So I'm excited about that one. And then in April, we have a special event that's going to be intercompany transactions and eliminations. This will be a 1-hour webinar, or probably 1.5 hours. It'll be put on by Peggy with RSM. And on intercompany transactions and eliminations, there'll be invite information coming probably within the next month or so on that one. And then in May, we're planning on coming back to our workflows. So we'll do entry-level workflows and then some advanced concepts with workflows as well. Workflows is also called Suite Flow in NetSuite, in case you see the term Suite Flow. Then in July, NetSuite Basics, also known as NetSuite 101. So this meeting is designed for beginners, people that are new to NetSuite. We're just going to go through the basics, and we're going to show you some tips and tricks on navigation and searching, and how to find things in NetSuite, and just give you kind of a crash course, if you will. Then in September this year, we're coming back to our customizing NetSuite meeting. So that'll be customizations, fields, forms, all the different basic customization stuff that you can do in NetSuite. So that's our schedule so far for the upcoming year.
Corey, before
yeah.
we go into billing platform, I just want to mention one thing. You mentioned about the networking event in March. People do have to RSVP for that. It's very important because that's how we get our food count. And there is a check-in process when people come. So
yeah,
I just
thank you for that.
Mention that.
Thanks, Margie. You're right. I misspoke on that. Yeah, we do need an RSVP for that. But
the other special event that RSM is going to be putting on, you don't have to RSVP.
That's right. That's the one we don't do the RSVP for. Yeah. Thank you for that, Margie. Okay.
And if this works out, I will try to offer CPUs for that as well.
Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Okay, so at this point,
a joke.
Really?
No, I
meant for the networking event. You don't
for the networking event. No CPEs
Oh.
for the networking event, but potentially I'm going to try for CPEs for the eliminations in NetSuite.
Oh, right. Okay.
The intercompany meeting.
No,
yeah.
I wish we could get CPEs for networking. That would be great. But I don't think we get those.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Ream. He's going to spend about 10 minutes telling us about Billing Platform. Thank you again to Billing Platform for sponsoring our meeting today. So Matt, I'll stop sharing and you can go ahead and take over from here.
Sounds good. Thank you. yeah, just having gone through the CPE process here, we're still waiting on some approvals, but I know it's a difficult process. And yeah, happy hours don't count. All right, let's. Oh, wait, I did this before. Did I do wrong? There we go.
Yep, looks good.
All right. All right, well, thank you for having us today. I'm glad to be here. I'm with my colleague, Kate Barr. Say hi, Kate.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining today.
Kate's going to be pinging you with our big bribe, but first of all, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the company. I'm a director of product marketing here at Billing Platform. This is my first user group meeting, but as the company's had a relationship here before, we've presented before, and of course, we have a long-standing relationship as a Suite app partner with NetSuite. So, I think, the old maxim is that cash flow is the lifeblood of every business, right? It starts with making sales and getting paid. Otherwise, you don't really have a business. As part of that, billing, of course, is a critical process, and it's gotten more and more complicated over the last few decades. Billing as a process, it's a fairly invisible process when you get it right. But as a lot of you probably know, when you get it wrong, it leads to very visible, can be large, disruptive, traumatic issues like revenue leakage, cash flow problems, poor customer satisfaction, even a lack of investor confidence. And these processes are just so complicated. I heard of just this week, actually, I heard of one potential customer we had talked to at Billing Platform. It was a $300 million revenue company, and they had about 80 employees, but 65 different people had to touch invoices before they went out the door. Now, I hope that's an extreme example. But, as businesses are trying to keep up with all the new, kind of technology-driven market demand for things like, innovative product and packaging options, they run into very similar situations, and maybe not to that level, but they can get similar. And so what Billing Platform does is we exist to really help simplify the complexities of modern billing. I'm sure that no one here is a stranger to these new models: subscriptions, usage-based pricing, outcome-based, maybe pay-per-use. There's a number of dynamic pricing models out there. And I'm sure you know that each of those brings its own complexities into the process: collecting the data, rating, mediating, making the right calculations, applying tax rules, foreign currency, and getting the correct details onto invoices in a timely manner. That's the bottom line, right? And so Billing Platform helps you with all of that, from taking the order data out of any front-end order or CPQ system, putting it through the appropriate processes, and making sure it ends up correctly on an invoice. In addition to that, we help with the back-end processes of collecting the payment, recognizing the revenue, recording that correctly in the GL, and even producing financial reports. So this, excuse me, I'm getting over a little cold. This diagram on the right is a pretty good representation of the various areas that our product helps in. So let's start just on the bottom left, that southwest corner with configure and sell. This is where pricing and packaging decisions are made, tested, codified, and you can find out what works best for you. This is where you establish your product catalog and all the pricing and packaging options that go along with that. Once the sale is made, we move up to the bill and invoice section, where the order processing happens. Anything from simple subscription management to complex usage processing. Taxation rules get applied. We integrate with all the major tax providers, and manage the complexities of partner payments for commissions, bonuses, things like that. And then we move into pay and collect. So this module includes our robust AR and collections functionalities, as well as a self-service customer portal that allows customers to manage their own payments, change payment methods, things like that. And then we close that circle with recognize and report. So we have a leading RevRec solution that takes center stage here. Make sure you stay compliant with all the latest guidelines and ensuring that you have accurate and timely financial reports. This middle section, the nurture and grow, is our representation of the complete flexibility that our product, our solution has, and the ability to handle any kind of billing model that you want to throw at us. We'll talk about that a little more in a minute. We let you run your business your way, right? There's some solutions that are like, well, if you want to use our product, you got to change how you run your business. We're not like that. Our solution is ultimately flexible. We have an open architecture. You can configure the product, mostly using no code configuration to be able to get it to work best for your business and to implement the business processes that you're using and that you're used to. And then we were also built, of course, not just for that flexibility, but for very complex security needs and for high volume scale. And we're not the only company in this space, right? There's a number of companies out there trying to build upon that the NetSuite functionality, but handle some of the more complex things that NetSuite may not have the ability to handle. So just a few areas where we stand out is, the first one, we support all your business requirements. Like I said, any product, any service, any business model. We can fulfill all of those requirements, help you create, deliver, and capture new revenue streams quickly and easily, react to market trends, things like that. Our agility, this is the no-code capability to really let you customize the solution to work the way that you need it to work, which means faster go live with the product, faster and easier launches of new product or monetization models, increasing operational efficiency, and of course, full integration with NetSuite, obviously, but a number of other solutions as well. And then we give you full financial control over the entire process, so you can achieve your financial reporting faster and more accurately, keep control on the G&A expenses. You can not hire people, or you can even reallocate people to higher value-added tasks and manage all of those critical processes. So we, I don't want you to just take my word for it about how great a solution this is. Personally, I've worked for 4 companies now in this same space. Billing platform has the product and the backing behind it to really be the leader in this space. But over the last year, the major analysts in the space have recognized that. The Forrester Wave, this was from Q1 of last year, but named the #1 industry leader, which we were very pleased with because we've been grouped with others in there before. Ventana Research is a little smaller one, but does a great coverage of the space. MGI the same, and IDC. Excuse me, they don't put numbers on there, but we're really proud of this recognition, and it's a reflection not only of the product, but the results that our customers have been able to achieve. Now, if you're familiar with analysts, you may be saying, but Matt, what about Gartner? Aren't they the #1? And I'll say, yeah, of course, they're #1. Gartner doesn't have a magic quadrant in our space, which is why they're not on here. And I don't know, Kate, if I'm allowed to say this or not, but Gartner is our #1 source of leads because they do recognize what we're doing and continue to refer people to us. And then the investment community is also taking notice. Just this morning, we announced a $90 million round of growth funding from FDB Capital, which we're really proud of. That ensures we can continue to support our customers and continue to innovate with our technology and bring even better solutions to the market. Now, like I said, we've been part of the NetSuite community for a long time. You can find our connector in the app Suite App Marketplace. And you may ask yourself, who's this even for, right? As happy NetSuite customers, I'm sure a lot of you are able to handle your billing and RevRec processes just fine using NetSuite alone, which is great. We're here to help NetSuite customers who need to get more from their investment by adding some extra functionality to handle even more complex billing situations. So whether that's new product and service bundles, packaging, high volume, or other reasons, I want you to think about where you are as a business and the pricing and packaging options you can provide. Then think about the future. Are you thinking about getting into subscriptions or usage-based processing, or you've got some IoT products you want to release and not sure how to monetize those? Those are the situations where you really want to reach out to a billing platform and see, see how we can help handle that for you. I'm not going to read through these bullets. You can see these, but we're certified. We help you, improve the processes, make things easier, full connection between NetSuite and billing platform. And basically we offer a streamlined, very customizable solution that can fit your needs as they are now and into the future. So here's the huge bribe. I promised you, Kate already posted this in the chat, but 5 of you can win a $25 Amazon gift card. We're not going to overwhelm you with emails and calls because you submitted this, but we will check with you to see if a conversation with billing platform makes sense for your business. And so please go ahead and fill that out. Kate will ping that throughout the session and let us know if you have any questions. We're going to be with you through the session today and look forward to learning more about your businesses and some of the needs that you have, and appreciate having us here. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much, Matt, and thanks Billing Platform for sponsoring again. I did just post the link to the raffle in the chat window again, so everybody can go and make sure you sign up for the raffle. At this point, we're going to move into the main part of our meeting, and we're going to turn it over to Julien Le Bars from Oracle NetSuite for our main content today, Suite Analytics Workbooks. And Julien, I don't know if I mentioned it, but we'll plan on a 10-minute break about halfway through at some point. And when the polling questions, when it's time for a polling question, I'll just kind of jump in and announce that we're going to do that polling question, and then I'll pop it up on the screen. We'll leave the polling question up for about 1 minute, and then we'll just continue with the presentation. At this point, I'll turn it over to you, Julien.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it. Do the sound check. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
All right. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. Put this into presentation mode, which you probably will need to change. Yes. And like that. Now you should be seeing the presentation full screen, yeah?
Yes, that looks good.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Thanks everybody for joining today. Thanks for having me in this presentation about Dataset and Workbook. My name is Julien, and I'm a product manager with Oracle NetSuite. I belong to the SuiteAnalytics team, who is responsible for the datasets and workbook, as well as other things that we'll go over today. So, quick agenda for us before we begin. First of all, I'd like to give a quick reminder of the SuiteAnalytics spectrum within NetSuite. So that means all of the different parts of the application which can help you essentially analyzing your data and so forth. Then we'll see where the workbook and dataset actually fit into that stack. Why you would want to use that, what are the advantages over other tools, and so forth. Then I'll try to deep dive essentially into the data set as well as the workbook. The way I broke that down is we'll have focus on the data set itself, the different part of it, how to create it. And throughout the presentation, I'm gonna jump back and forth between presentation and live demo, so that we can actually see in real time, real life, what I'm talking about in the presentation. And I'll do that for both the dataset and the workbook. And towards the end, I would like to also propose a rather end-to-end scenario where we would see basically all of the pieces connected together, and how we can build dataset and workbook to perform certain analysis and how to share that with colleagues and so forth. All right, so moving on to the spectrum, let's have a quick look here. This is basically broken down from left to right. You can see on your left, we start with reports and safe search. I'm fairly sure that most of you here, if not all of you, are very seasoned users of reports and safe searches. They are very popular tools in NetSuite, and they help you essentially to get the data you need for your daily business needs, actually, right? So we'll consider this as more of a descriptive type of analytics. Reports are have a nice layout. For example, all your financial reports, they follow specific layout that they can be reused, that are actually easy to understand for users that are used to consume those reports. Safe search are rather for you. Ad hoc analytics, when you need to answer a business question that you don't have to, something that you would like to know, you pull safe search and either create a new one or use something that you already have. So then you move on to more of a monitoring type of scenario with dashboard, KPI, analytics portlets. So analytics portlets are essentially the portlet that you can create out of the workbook, and it's out of the workbook, which we'll see later in this presentation. At that point, you're entering more of a diagnostic analytics. And then within our workbook and dataset, we are really offering here a way for users to explore and visualize a subset of data, right? So again, we'll see that will be the focus of the presentation today. We'll show you how to get that done. Then if we move to the right, as we can see, the level of skills as well is increasing, right? From the left to the right, more you go right, more a set of skills would be required to use those tools. So on the right hand side, we've got our connect, which allows you to basically connect your NetSuite data using our connector or the DBCG, DBC, Adobe.NET, etc., to basically pull your NetSuite data outside of the system and then use it in essentially any business intelligence tool or data warehouse and whatnot. NetSuite also offers the NetSuite Analytics Warehouse now. We won't be talking about this tool today. However, if you're interested in this tool, you should know that it's a very powerful business intelligence tool that works in parallel with Connect, and that allows you to analyze, to perform really complex analytics on your data using warehouse technology. So if you're interested into it, don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager to learn more. And of course, we have all sorts of API that lets you connect to NetSuite and grab your data. All right, so that's basically the analytics spectrum and what Suite Analytics as a team, as a part of NetSuite is responsible for. All right, so moving on, as we said, we're talking about dataset and workbook today. There it is. So very high level, what we can see here on screen. The picture at the top would be the dataset, and the picture at the bottom would be the workbook. They essentially work in parallel. I'll show you that more throughout the presentation. So with the dataset, you can query your NetSuite data over our new unified data model. So the model that is being used here is slightly different to what you are used in your safe search as well as reports. So this is something to know, and that may require a little bit of a learning curve. With this data set, we've enabled multi-level join connectivity. So you can, from your records, you can essentially join all the records that are available to you, something that you can't do today with the safe search. You have limitation, I believe, to one level join. In the data set, you don't have this type of limitation. The data set also allows you to filter out your data using a criteria builder. You've got a formula builder as well in the data set that allows you to create custom formulas. Single source of truth. This is a very important topic that I would like to discuss extensively today, where we are trying to push as a differentiator with the other tools, so safe search, reports. What does that mean? Essentially, as an account administrator, we know that account administrator usually deals with a lot of data, has a lot of requests from business and so forth. So with Dataset, we are trying to enforce the concept of, for specific analysis, you'd like to have a single data set which acts as a single source of truth throughout essentially the company. So if you're looking for your sales data, for instance, and the sales manager is requiring sales data from an administrator to better understand sales results, an administrator would create a sales data set and make it the unique or the source of truth for this for all sales analysis that could be done in the future. This is a very important concept. And how does that work is that you can have a single data set and it can be the source data of multiple workbooks, right? Also for maintenance purposes, if you have a single source of truth data set and somehow your definition of, I don't know, revenue, sales, any definitions of the business definition changes, or you'd like to add custom fields that you've created recently and so forth, you do that on a single data set, and this will be propagated to all of the workbooks that uses this data set. So again, very important concept. We'll touch a little bit more on that later. Caching mechanism. So caching mechanism is there to allow performance improvement. So you can cache your data set, and once it is cached, once you perform analysis with your workbook at the top of a cache data set, you will see substantial performance improvement. All right, the workbook. So the workbook is here to take data sets and allow you to summarize, slice, and dice your data. Right? You've got three types of view that you can use to do so: a table, a pivot table, and a chart. So you can use any of these views with the dataset data. The workbook allows you to link datasets together. Another feature that is a strong differentiator with other tools like Safe Search and Report. So you can take two different datasets that would be very complicated or impossible to join, and you can link them together into your workbook and analyze those data. Again, we'll go over that during the presentation. And saving, sharing, and exporting capabilities so that you can propagate all of the great workbooks you've done with the rest of the organization. And as mentioned earlier, you can take views from these data sets, from this workbook, and you can use them as portlet in your dashboard. All right, so now I talked about this a little already, but what is the sweet spot of the data sets and workbooks? So I think it's very important to remember that it really is a complement to Safe Search and Reports. We are not trying to push or to say that this is a straight replacement for those tools, because that's not really the case, at least not yet. Safe Search, for instance, has been in development for many years. It's very powerful and being used throughout the entire application. So workbook dataset is a much younger tool. So it's difficult to match all of this development that has been done in Safe Search. However, as mentioned, it already has stronger points that could help you to complement your Safe Search usage. The multi-level join, for instance, that you are limited with in your Safe Search. From report perspective, it's also, I think, important to remember that at the moment, any financial use cases, so your income statement, your balance sheet, and those very specific reports, this is not really, at the moment, you can't really do such reporting with a workbook and dataset. So the capabilities are just not there yet. For all of the other use cases, which we would call rather operational, so more not financial use cases, but operational use cases, sales, inventory, purchasing, and so forth, we are seeing that most reports could be really recreated using Datasets and Workbook. The unified data model that I've mentioned earlier, this is a new model that is being used at the top of the Datasets and Workbook. It also is used with the latest Connect, which is the Connect.2 NetSuite 2, sorry, data source, if I recall correctly. And yeah, another important, or where this tool can really shine is for centralizing and maintaining your analytics across the organization. So this is the single source of truth that I've touched upon in the previous slide. All right. So furthermore, you'll see throughout the presentation and the demo that we also have enhanced usability over the Safe Search and reports with functionalities like drag and drop. When you create a formula in the data set, you've got a way to validate that formula before you actually add it to your data set. So if there is an error, the formula builder will try to indicate to you what's going on, as opposed to your Safe Search, where you type a formula, then apply that formula directly to your Safe Search, find out there is an error, coming back, and so forth, which is a bit more complicated process. Yeah, the visualizations as well, the choice of visualizations, we believe is a very good competitive advantage over your Safe Search and so forth, where you can create your pivots and charts really easily. The link of datasets, which is linking two datasets together, which will allow you to that would enable comparison use cases, most likely budget versus actual, sales versus quota, and so forth. We'll see an example of sales versus quota later today. And for faster results, we've got caching mechanism that allows you to have really large data sets and cache them and still be able to run analysis at the top of this really large number of data, right? Okay, so
Julien, I'm sorry. I think this is a good time. I'm just to interrupt you real quick. We're gonna launch our first polling question. So again, the polling questions are for CPE credits. I'm gonna go ahead and launch it right now. The questions are based on the content. Hopefully, they're mostly in order, but please do your best to answer the questions there. I'm gonna leave this open for 1 minute. About 30 seconds left for our polling question.
When it's 100% answered,
What's that, Margie? Sorry.
What if it's 100% answered? 100% of the people that signed up for CPE credits answered it? I don't.
I think that's just individual, not
uh,
100%.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and we'll pop another one up here in just a little bit, and I'll let you continue on. Thank you, Julien, for allowing me to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so I hope that you got that right. Thank you. Let's move on to okay. Focus on the data set itself. So this page. So when you are working with datasets and workbook, the first step would be you have two choices. Either you'll start an analysis on something that already exists, and the data set is already in the system. So you'll open the data set and go ahead and either modify it and so forth, and then use it on the workbook. Or, which is the options we're seeing here, you'll start from scratch, and you'll start by picking a root record, right? That is very similar experience of what you do with Safe Search. When you create a new Safe Search, you are presented with a list of records that you select. You'll pick one, and then you'll create your data set or your Safe Search at the top of this record. So very similar experience here. In this page, you'll see a couple of information, the record type name. So that would be your transaction, the item, budget, and so forth. The record category. Okay, so it's broken down into 3 categories. First one being standard. So that's a standard record that you have in the system. Custom record, that'll be a record that you've created specifically for your business. So it's going to be mentioned here, that's a custom one. And maybe you can see towards the middle / bottom of the list, you'll find analytical records. And that would be a record that is created by NetSuite for analytical purposes. And what it does is that it's taking data from one or multiple records and merge them together so that you have a record dedicated for specific type of analysis. So I think we have few of them in the system, one for sales, purchasing, and so forth. So those are these types of records. And the last column you'll see it's simply the record ID. So if you are used to work with IDs, you can also refer to that. Okay, once you selected record, you'll be presented with the dataset UI. So this UI can be broken down into 3 main categories, as we can see here with the colors, with the rectangles colored. So on the left-hand side, we've got this rather orange rectangle. And in this section, what do we have? So we start our data set at the top of a record. In this case, the record is called sales, in parentheses, invoice, which, by the way, this one is an analytical record. You can see that we can never look at that later in the presentation. And so from that list on the left-hand side, you'll have your root record at the top under formula. And underneath, as you can see, there is a bunch of other lines with a little caret that you can expand. And that would be all the records that are joined to the root record. And when you expand these, you can see all of the records that are also joined to it. So if you expand account here, you will see underneath account all the records that are joined to account. And that's how you achieve browsing through multi-level join in your data set. Now, those are the records. That's great. Now, what about the fields? Because what do we want? We want fields from our records. So you simply click on the name of the record. In this case, we can see that we've clicked on the sales invoice. And on the right-hand side, still within the orange panel, we see a second column with a bunch of rows, amount, class, customer, date, etc. These would be your fields, right? So these are all the fields that you have access available for each for each record that you've selected on the left.
Julian,
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you use your cursor for those that are new to this and you're just saying on the left column, the right column, and I know you're saying the orange, but can you just use your cursor and kind of point to that? I think that would be helpful.
no worries. Let me see if I can. Is there a pointer somewhere that I could possibly use here? I guess there is, but if I, okay, let me see.
In the presenter view in PowerPoint, there's usually an option to choose like a laser pointer that you can use on the screen.
Do you see my pointer at least?
Yes, we can see your cursor.
All right, okay. So if you see the pointer, that's enough. Cool. So yeah, I was referring to this section on the left being your records and with all the joints underneath, and the other section on the right here, which would be your column that would be listing all of the fields. All right. So the way you would interact with this is relatively simple. All the fields that you have in each of these records, you can either double click them, they will automatically be added to the table right here, or you can simply drag and drop. As we can see here, these fields, certain fields are highlighted in blue. That actually means that for this specific record, sales in parentheses invoice, we've got all of these, actually 9 of them, which we see here, 9 of them that are being used in my table down here. Okay, and that would be what we are seeing in the yellow rectangle right here, the table. These are all the fields as well as all the values for each field that will compose your data set. And later on, when you will be creating a workbook out of this data set, you'll be able to see all of these fields. Okay. Another feature from the data set is the criteria builder, which you can see here in the green rectangle, and that allows you to apply criteria against your dataset data, essentially. Also, I haven't mentioned it, but within our list of available fields here in orange, we've got a little formula option here, and when I click that, I'll be able to create a new formula. So now let's have a quick, a little bit more detailed look at this panel here. We call it the available field list, or AFL for short, if you've heard that before. And again, 3 main sections. So at the top in green, formula that I've just mentioned. At the bottom, we've got the orange rectangle with all the records and joins. So now we can see here that from the sales invoice, we have expanded item, right? So the item record is joined to the sales invoice record. And underneath item, we can see all of the records that are actually also linked or joined, sorry, to the item one. Now, in my case here, I've selected class record. So I clicked on it. And on the right-hand side, in the yellow rectangle or column, we can see all the fields that belong to the class record. All right. So moving on to the formula builder. So this is what was highlighted in green at the top. So when you click on the formula, you will have access to a formula builder, and the formula builder will allow you to create formula, custom formula that can be then used as a field in your data set. The way this works is that we have a little functions section here where you can browse through all of the functions that are actually supported. For each of those functions, you will have some example and some description of how this is used, how it can help you in your business. And you can even add the example to the formula builder. You can name this formula, and you, of course, can choose the output type depending on the formula you are using. Okay. Moving on to the criteria builder. So this is the little rectangle that sits at the top of your table in the data set, and it allows you to filter out the data you don't need in your data set. So in this example, it allows you to it has an AND and OR logic, and it also allows you to create groups so that you can create a group of filters and then link it with AND and OR operators so that you can create the logic you want. In our case here, we are looking at we are filtering for sales rep, any of these lists. The class is new customer. And now I've got a new group here. I want amount greater than $1,000, or in this case, I have an or items that are any of this laser printer. Bear in mind that this is a demo example, so it doesn't have to exactly match the specific use case that you have, but that's how this could be working. I'll touch on it a little bit later as well, but as a reminder, we would most likely recommend not to apply too much filter on your data set due to the single source of truth that I've mentioned earlier, because we believe working at the top of a larger sample of data from the data set itself is actually more beneficial. And then once you are analyzing the data in your workbook, you can then further filter your data. Okay. So moving on to the data table. So we've seen that from our list of records and the joins underneath the records, we can click on these and we have a list of fields, and this will help us to build the data set that we want. So we'll drag and drop or double click on those fields and they will be listed in the table underneath. So this is how the table would look like. From that table, we can see at the bottom in the footer here that it tells us the number of rows of data that we have. This is also paginated, which makes it perform a little bit better. So if you scroll through all this data, you can then move on to the pages and so forth. You've got basic interactions like sorting. You can drag and drop columns from right to left. You can reshuffle them as you wish. You can remove columns, of course. Interesting features that we'll see, down the road. There is a show location in the field list. So if you are not too sure where this field is coming from, for example, this transaction type, you can just double click on this three dot here and show the location in the field list. And on the left-hand side, the field list would actually show you from which record or joint this is coming from. So pretty handy, especially when you are looking at something that you didn't build yourself.
Julien, I think this might be a good place to pause real quick for another polling question. So let's go ahead and do that real quick.
Go ahead.
All right, polling question is up. We have 1 minute to answer that. About 30 seconds left for the polling question. Angela, I'm not sure. Maybe it's like hidden on another window. Okay, I'm going to end the poll at this point. And we can continue on. Thank you, Julien.
All right, we are back. Thank you. So next up, I would like to touch on the caching mechanism that we have on the dataset. So first of all, we'll see how, but this is a feature that actually needs to be enabled or turned on in your account first, because this is by default, it is turned off. Quick notes, workbook, dataset, this caching mechanism and so forth. These tools are coming with NetSuite. They are not, you don't need to buy any extra bundle or anything like that. This is coming at no cost from your NetSuite. So you don't even need to turn it on, like the dataset and workbook. This is turned on by default. But for the specific feature, which is the caching mechanism, you do actually have to enable it first. So once you do so, it enables you to cache the data, or create a snapshot of a specific data set that you consider is very important for your business and rather large. The idea is that you need to have a lot of data in the data set to really take advantage of this feature. And once you turn it on, so you have two modes. You have the real-time mode. The real-time mode, as mentioned, doesn't leverage any cache mechanism or any snapshot, and you see your data real-time. However, when you use the cache mode, you now enhance the performance of your analysis, and you have a faster response time. Of course, since you are taking a snapshot of your data, this comes at a cost of real-time data. And it's important to keep in mind that your data can be old as up to 1 hour, right? After 1 hour, it's going to automatically refresh. So keep that in mind. If you have this mode enabled and you just receive the latest transactions in your system and you want to add it as part of the analysis on your workbook or whatnot, if you are leveraging a cache data set, you'll have to remember to refresh that cache so that it will take in consideration the latest transaction. Of course, you can do that on the fly. You can do that at the dataset level. You can also do that at the workbook level. So we'll see that later in the presentation. Now, you'll ask me, okay, what about the size, or how many datasets can I cache? How do I know that I run out of space? Do I have unlimited space for that? The answer is not that straightforward, but it's a little complicated to give a specific number of cached dataset that can be enabled, because every dataset might have a different type, right? But from our experience right now, users did not come back to us with any types of struggle around this problem. So you may go ahead and create as many as you want for now if you want to leverage this. Of course, it's better to do that at the top of datasets that are used on a regular basis. It would be better utilization of the resources. And if it happens that you would run out of space and the system would tell you, oh, okay, you've already have too many cached datasets, then you would receive some sort of notification that will tell you, okay, now the system can't basically cache this dataset because you run out of space. So what do you do in this case? I'll show you also later that we have a management tool that allows you to review all the cache datasets in your system, and you can disable the cache on the fly. So if that happens, you have a solution. All right. Now, as mentioned, the dataset has this concept of single source of truth, and you want to have as much as possible single dataset that you will spread across your organization for the analysis. How do you do that? We've got saving and sharing capabilities. So when a dataset is created from scratch, you will have to save it. You can then retrieve it in the content management that we have, our analytics home. Quick note: you need to save a dataset so that you can then enable caching on it. So only saved dataset can be cached, essentially. Right, now what about sharing? So for sharing, you have the ability to share this data set with either role or employee directly. So you can choose whether you want which one you want. Of course, regardless of whom you share with, it respects global permissions and restrictions. So if you share some data set with someone that does not have access to sales data or more sensitive data, when the person will want to open the data set, they will receive a notification that essentially it's breaking the global permission restriction, so they can't open it. So don't worry, if you share it with someone that should not see it, they will not see the data anyway. Okay. And to conclude on this data set, before having a live demo, this couple of other functionalities that I wanted to highlight here. There's an undo redo mechanism. So if you while creating or modifying your data set, you're adding fields, removing fields, and you did some mistakes, for example, you can undo or redo your changes a little bit like on your web browser. You've got a refresh button that will get you the latest data at any time you refresh it. You can export this data to CSV and not CVS. Sorry about that. You can also export the SuiteQL query into a TXT file. I can show you that a little bit later as well. Okay, so now there was quite a few slides and some talking. So let us move to the SuiteAnalytics tool or instance of NetSuite at least. I believe you can see my instance of NetSuite now, yes?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, okay, so now, how to access datasets in Workbook. So we've got this analytics tab here that will be the analytics home. Before that, I'm going to go quickly into the setup company enable features. I'm going to show you where you would want to enable the cache mechanism. So we've got company, accounting, and here analytics. So we go to analytics, we find Suite Analytics Workbook, and here we've got cache data in datasets. So you want to check that in, save, and you're good to go. All right, so moving on to the analytics home. Let's have a look at dataset itself. So this is the place where all your analytics of datasets and Workbook will be stored. You can see we have two tabs here that you can switch between. And let's go ahead and create a new dataset. So that's the page with the record. I'm going to take the transaction record. It's by far the most popular one, as you may imagine. And now I'm going to be presented with the dataset UI. Okay. All right. So now that you are here, you can see that for each record that you will create a dataset at the top of, there will be by default some fields that will be selected. So we can see here, we have for transaction root record here. We've got 7 fields. They are highlighted in blue. And that means that they are available in this data set here, right? So you can scroll. Yeah, I can move pages. And so that's how it is related between my fields here. So if I want to add another field, I can just click right here and the field is there, or I can just drag and drop the field and it's there. Now, let's have a quick look at the list of fields. So we know from a lot of discussions with our customers that the transaction record is a very common use case, and people are trying to recreate safe search that they use for a long time in NetSuite using the dataset, and for that they usually start from transaction. And as the data model is a little different, there might be some friction to find fields that are a little bit more straightforward to find in your safe search. So it's important to know that from transactions here, you can scroll all those fields. You will have already many fields that you may know, but For example, when it comes to item, location, amount for the line amount, etc., you would want to go towards your transaction line, right? So you click on your transaction line here, and if you scroll, you will be able to see many fields that you might be looking for. Your item here, I can add it there. Your main line, very important. Usually when you do analysis on some transactions, you would want to remove the main line. So how you do that, you would grab your main line, drag and drop into the criteria builder, and here you would say, no, I don't want main line, so I just apply, and now we are removing main line. Let's have a look here at maybe further some further filtering. So transaction type, let us focus on sales order. So I grab type, and here I type in sales orders. So I can choose here none of, any of. In this case, I'm interested in any of sales orders, and I would apply. Now that I removed the main line, I would like to have the amount at the line level, right? So back to the transaction line, I would find, for instance, amount net. So I'll click on that. And as we can see, for each item, we will see the amount on the right-hand side. And here, here where we have the total amount, we can see that this is the total amount for the sales order itself. So that's why it's being repeated here. Now, as you know, NetSuite is heavily focused on accounting. So in this case, we will see that our line amount would be negative here, okay? So if for your analysis, you would like to have this positive, that's a very good use case for a basic formula. So you would just go ahead, click the formula right here, new formula, and now I'm presented with the formula UI. If I select fields here, I can find all the fields that are used in my data set and so forth and more. I can also use field ID directly here in my formula if I know them. But in my case, I'm looking for the transaction line amount net, right? So transaction lines dot net amount ID here. I will add that to my formula, and I can simply multiply it by -1, and that's going to give me a positive value. So that's a little trick if you want to have positive values in your data. So amount, line amount, I'll call that. Okay, and here I will change the output type. So you can see we have a comprehensive list. In this case, I want to use float. And the validate button. So really important or really cool feature. I can just validate. Now I've got a green tick, so I know that my formula is correct. So I can just go ahead and save it. And save that. Now, when I select formula, a little bit like I select the record, I will see the list of available formula, in this case, line amount, and I can just grab that and put it here. And that's going to turn those negative numbers into positive. As you may see here, we lost the dollar symbol, but that's something we can also fix later when we create a workbook. For formulas, let me jump to the Help Center real quick. So in the Help Center, we've got under SuiteAnalytics and then Workbook, Custom Workbook Dataset, you will find a section about formula fields. And you've got a good set of examples of formulas that you can use and what they do. So here you have basic formula. So in this case, let's have a look. Here I can use this one for identify overdue transactions and so forth. So you have examples, you can just copy them and put them in your formula builder. You also have a more advanced formula page here, which is also very interesting, that we can scroll through, where it will give you much more complicated calculations that can be achieved. For example, at the bottom here, we have how to do some comparison, right? So if you want last year to date, so this is to do period over period variances and so forth. You've got examples for amount last year to date, amount this year, etc., etc. All of those formulas that can help you to achieve this. So I recommend you to take a look at this documentation if you're interested in building your own formulas. Right.
Julien, I think this is a great place just to stop real quick for another polling question. So I'm going to pop it up real quick. Okay, polling question is up. You have 1 minute. About 30 seconds left. Polling question. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Thank you, Julien, and let's go ahead and continue.
Thank you. There was a question about the links for the formula in the help center. I just pasted them into the chat. All right. So we've seen the criteria here. So we did the formula. Now we went through the transaction line here, which is important. Yeah, I wanted to mention if you, for instance, expand your transaction line, you will also have very important records that you might want to use. For instance, transaction accounting line, which will hold all of your account informations, very important fields. If you again expand that, you will have the account record with all of the information for specific accounts, etc. Under transaction line, you will also find your item record, which is holding all of the items information, and two very cool, I would say, records which are related transaction lines, next and previous. So what does this do? If you select, for instance, next here, you can actually select the transaction field and use it in your data set to see what transaction is coming after the specific transaction you're looking for. So if it's a sales order, you might see your invoice information for payment and so forth. If you use previous and still using a sales order, you might see that your sales order is coming from a local, for example. Very, very interesting record that can be used. So something for you to browse here. You don't have to browse, actually, you can also search. So you've got a quick search capabilities here. You have to bear with me here because it might be a little bit overwhelming at first to see the results of the search due to the number of records and joins. So let's have a look. If I'm typing, for instance, amount here, and I say okay, I'm presented with the search results. So at the top here, it tells me list of records. So no records were found using the amount. Okay, fair enough. Now, underneath, we've got fields. The way this is broken down, on the left, you've got the actual record from which the field was found. So in this case, we've got amount net, okay? And we can see that amount net is coming from the transaction line. So it's very important information to understand what I'm looking at, essentially, right? So if I scroll down, we can see that this amount here is coming from transaction line and then transaction accounting line, right? If you want more information about your fields, you can also use the field level help using the little eye icon here, and it will give you your field ID, and that might help you to navigate where that, or to understand where this field is coming from. If you don't find what you need in all these results, you may want to use show more results. And what this is going to do, by default, the search is going through 2 level joins. And the first level join, I'm sorry, and when you do that, it's going to search through the second level join. So it's going to exponentially increase the number of results. But again, the principle remains the same, right? So here we are looking at created by partner, join to transaction, and this is the field that you will find there. And as you can see, in this case, we've got a rather large list of fields. So bear that in mind when using the search functionality, that you may experience a lot of results. Now, you can also find records. So if I type transaction, we can see here that the records section will show me all of the records that contains transaction trends. And I scroll through, and then eventually I'm back to the list of fields. Again, once you find fields using the search, you can simply click, drag and drop, and add them to your table. I haven't mentioned that, but when you use criteria, of course, you can just grab a field from the list and build a criteria at the top of it. And this specific field doesn't have to be part of the data set itself. Something to keep in mind. Let me add my sales rep here. So I type sales rep, and I want sales rep from the transaction. So I grab the first one, and maybe I can grab item also for later. So from transaction line, I'm going to scroll down. From the transaction line, whoops, okay, sorry. From the transaction line, record, I want to grab item. I already have it in the table because it's blue. Okay, good. So another feature that I've discussed in the presentation, it's if I look, let's take item, for example. And if I don't remember where this is coming from, I can use this show location in the field list. I just click that. The system will automatically pick the record from which it's from, in this case, transaction line, and I will be able to see that here. Of course, you have renaming capabilities here, so you can, that's especially convenient if you rename your field. So if I rename that item, now I've got a custom name for these fields, and if I want to make sure that it's the one I'm thinking about, then I just do that and I know. Okay, now about the caching mechanism. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, we've got real-time response and when it was last refreshed. So if I open this, now I can cache that. As I mentioned, I need to save the data set first. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to save the data set. I'll call it with a very original name. Now my data set is saved, and I can go ahead and apply, like enabling, I can now enable the cache mechanism to my data set. It's going to take a little while, and then I'm going to have a pop-up that will tell me that my data set is cached. Export functionality would be found right here. So I can go ahead and export to CSV, or I can go ahead and export to SuiteQL. There you go. You can see the pop-up on the top right corner of the screen. The cache response is now enabled. I can see that this status is here. So now, when I use this data set at the top of my workbook, I'm now using a cache data set, which should improve the performance of my workbook, essentially. Right. So we're talking about the export, and now for the sharing part, you've got a share button here. You can switch between the role and the employee's name directly, and select all of these independently, or you can share with all if needed right here. Cool. Okay, I think that's what I wanted to cover for the data set. So let me move back to the presentation for now. And hopefully you can see the workbook layout now. Yeah.
Yes, it looks good.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Okay. All right. So we've talked quite a bit about the data set and the different aspects of it, how to create one, its features and functionalities. Now, main idea behind data set would be that you will create that data set to have a set of data that you want to then perform analysis onto. So to do so, you will use so-called workbook. From your data set, you have a button that I'll show you later. You just, once you're done, you just say, okay, let's go ahead and create a workbook, and this is what you will be seeing when you do so. So on the left-hand side here, under this little yellow rectangle that I'm showing with my pointer here, we can see all the fields that we've added to our data set table, okay? So all the fields that you've added to your dataset table, renamed them, custom formula fields that you've added there, anything, you will see them there, which, by the way, reminds me that when you create your dataset, any custom fields, any custom records, any of these custom things that you would be doing will be available. So you can use them. So if you have custom fields under, I don't know, the transaction line, you will see all of your transaction fields under your transaction line records. If you have a transaction, if you have a custom record, if you select that custom record, you will see all the fields that belong to that custom record, and you can create data at the top of it. Yeah, right. So back to our workbook, you can see here that those are all the fields we can play with when we will use this workbook. We can see that this workbook is linked or connected to the sales data set, and the sales data set contains it. In the middle here, you can see that you have 3 boxes which represent view types or visualization type that you can select to analyze your data. So table, pivot, and chart, right? So you select any of these and you can just go ahead and start creating something. Now let's have a look at the table. So the table, very similar to the dataset table. It's a simple table and it allows you to list your data. So as we can see here from our data set, we've selected 1, 2, 3 fields, so amount net, date, and transaction. I can see this because they are actually highlighted in blue, which tells me that they are used in the data set, in the view, in the table view, I'm sorry. Okay, from here you can also apply some filter, right? So that's what I've done at the top here. Remember that when you apply filter to this view, you can use either a field from the view, so date, transaction, or amount net, or any of the fields available in the dataset independently to create a filter. In this case here, I created a simple show me amount greater than $1,000. At the bottom here, we've got some aggregations that can be applied. So if you click on the header of a column, at the bottom, you can see sum, average, and so forth. So that can be handy to compare some data. Within the visualization, we support some level of drill down to forms. So for example, the transactions here, you can see they are in blue. So if you over it, you'll see a link. And if you click that, you will open the invoice 308247 here. All right, you can export that view using this little export button. It's going to be a CSV again. And you can choose whether you want to leverage cache response or not for the data set that you are looking at here. So you can do that independently on your workbook as well. Moving on to probably the view type that is the most interesting or powerful in this workbook, which is the pivot. So our SuiteAnalytics or workbook pivots, you can find a lot of similarities on when you build it with Excel. So you can see under the orange layout here column that I'm showing with my pointer that you've got three sections: rows, columns, and measures, right? So what you want to do here, you want to take a numeric value, amount, quantity, whatever, and select this into your measure section right here. And then using rows or columns, what you're going to do is that you are going to break this this metric value here by the dimension you've selected. Okay, so in this case, customer, item, and date. So we can see that that would be rather sales by item that starts by customer. So first is customers, then we've got item, the date of the transaction, and then the amount. The pivot supports subtotals and grand total, as you can see here. We have quite a few features on this pivot that I will show you later in the presentation. It's going to be a bit easier than like I would show you live. But the main one would be, for instance, here, the create calculated measure. So create calculated measure is allowing you to create a new formula field for this particular pivot. So this is a very handy feature that, for example, will allow you to take two matrix value and perform basic arithmetics against it. Maybe you've got an amount of sales. I'll take this example later from your sales rep, and you want to compare it with the sales, the actual quota, right? And then you can take these two metrics and say, show me the dollar amount difference or the percentage difference between the two to see if my sales rep has met their target, for example. The way it works, so you click on that button and you get a little UI like this, and you simply select the metric value and that you want and the operator against it. It's important to know when you want to do things like percentage calculation, you cannot here you have to play with decimal values essentially. So you cannot multiply something by 100, right? So I'll show you later how you want to format this. That's a limitation that you want to be aware of. Now you will ask me, what's the difference between the formula fields on the data set and the calculated measure in the pivot? Very good question, thank you. On the data set, when you create a formula field, you will create formula field that will be applied at the top of raw data, right? So when you add the fields to your data set, there is no aggregation, and the formula is basically on the raw table. When you create a calculated measure, what you are doing is that you are creating a formula field that is working at the top of aggregated data, right? So it will take the aggregation of an amount and the aggregate, like I said, the sales amount and the aggregation of the quota amount, and it will perform the calculation at the top of it. So it serves very different purpose, and you need to be aware of that. When you create a calculated measure, also it's bounded to the pivot on which you created it, so it doesn't create a new field that you can then use somewhere else. It's specifically for that pivot. So that could be considered also as a limitation. If you want to reuse that field on another pivot, then you will have in the other pivot you will have to recreate it. Okay. Second very important feature of the workbook, which, as mentioned earlier, would act as a differentiator between the different analytic tools that we have in NetSuite, Safe Search, reports, and so forth, which will be the dataset linking. Okay, so how is dataset linking working? A workbook, on the workbook itself, you can select multiple datasets, and each visualization of your workbook can use this dataset independently. I'll show you in the demo. Now, what you can also do is that you can take two datasets and link them together. So we can see here on the move my cursor around on the yellow rectangle here. We've got our dataset 1, which is the sales dataset, and the dataset 2, which is a quota dataset. And we are now using common keys here on the orange rectangle to link these data sets together. And what is it going to do is that once they are linked together within within one pivot, you'll be able to use data from the two different data sets. So to remember here, you want to, as a common keys, you want to use the fields that you will be using in the row or column sections. You do not need to link together the metric value or the measure value. So in this case, amount or something like that. There is no need to do that, but you absolutely need to link all of the dimensional fields that you want to use on your pivot. So in the rows or in the columns. If you don't, and you use unlinked fields in a pivot that uses a linked data set, you're going to have some differences in your data, and that's not going to provide the result you want. Again, I'll show you this in the tool afterwards. So once you've linked the data set is linked in your workbook and can be used on any. You can have as many pivots that uses this linked data set in the same workbook. Cool.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break for a polling question, Julien. I'm going to pop up another poll. Thank you for your patience on that. And let's go ahead, and the poll should be launched now. About 30 seconds left on the poll. Okay, we'll end the poll. Thank you, Julien. Let's go ahead and continue.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so there's a question actually in the chat if I could show the result of this linked data set, and that's what we see on screen now. So good timing. Okay, so what am I showing in this workbook here? So we are looking at a pivot. Its name is sales versus quota. Okay. Under the dataset sections here, we've seen earlier that this is where our datasets are living. We can see quota dataset as well as sales dataset, and there's a little kind of visual cue that tells you that these two are linked together, right? And if you select in the first dataset here in the list of quota, you'll see under this section below all the fields that are available from the quota dataset, as well as the one which are used as a common key, so date, as well as sales rep. So as a reminder, seeing this information, I know that I can use date and sales rep for my rows and columns. So in my case here, I use sales rep. You could, if you would click on sales dataset, you would also see date and sales rep. And in this case, we are using sales rep from quota, but you could as well use the one located under the sales dataset. That would be the same information. Okay. Now, what is important here is that since I'm doing sales versus quota, I want to grab the quota amount from the quota dataset. So this is what I have here. I want to put it in my measure section right there. And I want to compare it with the current sales, right? So I will go to my sales dataset and I will pick sales dollar amount, which I have here. And now I'm able to see in orange here in my table, my pivot table, the actual sales and in green next to it, the quota that was basically agreed upon with our sales rep. And this is broken down by each sales rep. So this is what you can achieve with the dataset linking. That would be one type of use case. And now what I've done, using calculated measure, I created a dollar difference column to see the delta, basically, how much am I off, negatively or positively. And I have a percentage difference field, which again gives me a percentage of what's the difference. And you can also see in this example that I'm leveraging another feature of the pivot, which is called conditional formatting. And with conditional formatting, you can build rules on the top of your metric or measure values here to, depending on the rule, have different outcome. In this case, we have a little arrow as well as red background or green background with a green arrow, yellow for more like neutral results. So these are the very strong capabilities that the pivot can do, and that I wanted to present to you in this PowerPoint, but we'll also go a little bit more in detail. We'll go more in detail when I will show you it live in the application. Okay, so that was for the pivot, and now let's move on to the chart. So what's important to know with the chart is that it uses the same engine as the pivot in the background. So the way you would use a chart is very similar to when you are in Excel and you are doing a pivot. And then from that pivot, you use the functionality pivoting chart, or a little forgot how it's called, but you can directly from a pivot create a chart. That's kind of what it's happening here. However, you do have to create the chart yourself with the different sections. So we have a section x-axis, series and measures. And again, here we are looking at sales by sales rep. And we are breaking that down into year and quarter. So we can see that we are looking at relatively old data, 2006 Q3 and 2006 Q4. When doing a chart, you have several chart views that you can use, or chart types. And you can also leverage filtering. You can leverage linked data set as well. You can leverage calculated measure and so forth. So very similar to how the pivot is actually working. Okay, so with that, I can transition back to my demo. So we can take a look on the tool. Okay, it seems like I was disconnected. So let me share again. Here we are. Okay. All right. So now we are back into NetSuite environment, and we're going to have a look at the data set, at the workbook. Right. So as mentioned from our data set, we have this option here, create new workbook. So I'll just click that. And at this point, I'll be presented with my workbook UI. Again, 3 types of visualization that I can choose from. I haven't mentioned it in the presentation, but you have an option to connect as many data sets as you want on a workbook, which makes our workbook also act as a single source of truth. Okay. So what does that mean? You can have one single workbook that contains multiple data sets and then multiple tabs, and each of the tabs that you see at the top here, they can have pivot or chart or table, whatnot, right? You can go as you wish, and each of these tabs can leverage different data set or the same data set, linked data set, not linked data set, and so forth. Let me delete these tabs for now. Okay. Now you can see that you can delete these tabs. If you double click, you can rename them. Okay. All right. So let's start here and have a look at connecting a data set, how it looks. 2 buttons, connect data set here and here. If I click the button, I'm going to be presented with the list of existing data set, and I can also start from a new data set, right? And if I do that, I will be presented with the list of records. So I go ahead, type item, select item, And now I can just add fields here or not, apply it to my workbook. And now we can see that my workbook contains transaction and item. Okay. Table really quickly. So let's have a look at the transaction data set here. We have an option to drop all the fields at once, which is quite handy. So I'll just do that. Very similar to the table of the data set. However, here you can further manipulate this data without actually affecting the data set itself, right? So this is pretty handy. If you are interested in, or if your account, or rather if you operate in multiple currency, you have a way here on the workbook to just display original currency, apply conversion that will convert to your system currency, or you can utilize conversion option. So you can convert to whatever currency you want. You can anchor it to the relative dates as of today, of course, or you can just unselect this and select an exchange rate that you want, right, from the past rather. And then you just apply and it will perform the conversion to your data. For filter, you can go ahead and select filtering here. I can go with condition-based filter for my document ID, right? Contain, does not contain, so forth, or I can select the value. Maybe I don't want to see 101. I just click that and I apply, and now my filter is applied. Or it's actually is 101, so I'm only seeing 101 now. Can remove that, and you have an option to export to CSV. Okay. Moving on to the pivots. So if I click on the pivot right here, I'll be presented with the UI for pivots. Building a pivot uses the drag and drop functionality. So I'm going to go ahead, grab the line amount here, item, and maybe, I don't know, or maybe I'll do sales rep, right? And I can see the sales by sales rep. So if I'm not satisfied with the list of sales rep, I can just go ahead and apply a filter on the sales rep, and I don't want to see no value. I don't want to see this one. Okay, I will apply that, and now I have a filter on my pivot. Okay. If you build on your rows here, hierarchy, so for instance, item is a multi-hierarchy field, so depending on what you want to show your options here, child level, single column, or multi-column. In this case, I'm going to do child level only. Then I can do document number, okay? And here we can see that we have an expand collapse capabilities. For that, I need to apply some subtotal. So I'm just going to go right here and apply subtotal at the item level. And I also want to show grand total. Where's my grand total here? Show grand total. So this way I will see when I expand and collapse. Now I'm fully collapsed. So all sales rep, right? And then I can expand and see different items for each document number. I can collapse this. I need to show subtotal here if I want to see some value. There it is. So that's how you would build your pivot. Interesting functionality here, which is called the compact mode. Compact mode helps you to bring multiple fields into one type hierarchy. So if I do this, you will see that my view will be substantially smaller. Right, if I expand here now, everything is under the same column. So depending on how much data you have, this can be pretty handy. All right. Now, as mentioned,
Julien, I'm sorry, real quick. Can we just do a quick polling question here?
Go ahead.
Sorry for that. Okay, let's go ahead and do the polling, and the poll is open. About 30 seconds left on the poll. Okay, I'll end the poll. Thank you, Julien. You can continue.
Oh, thank you. All right, so let's move on real quick to calculate measure. I'll skip relatively quick on this one because I'd like to show it to you in a proper example later on. So real quick, that's where you would want to create your calculated measure. Here you would find the measures you want to use for calculation, and you would apply the calculation into it. There is an auto validation, so you will see a green tick whether your formula is correct or not, and if not, it will tell you what's going on. And I mentioned conditional formatting early on. So for conditional formatting under your measures, you will select here the three-dot menu. You've got a conditional formatting section. You would click that, and here you would be applying your rules, right? So if between, let's say, 100 and 500 and show, I don't know, green, yeah. You can add as many as you want, right? You've got access to icons. You can have cells that are using some colors as well, combined with icons. And each rule can have different operator, obviously. You can decide to apply it to subtotal and grand total or not using this checkbox, and then you just apply this, and that's it. Very important when you create a conditional formatting, this is using this decimal value, right? So you cannot say something like 10%. You have to use the decimal version of it. So that's very, very important when you build your your conditional formatting. We'll see yeah, those are empty, so okay. We'll see that in the example that I have for you after. Okay, so when I apply this, we can see now that I have my values are highlighted in green if they match the rules that I have set. Cool. Now, briefly on how you would want to create dataset linking. Again, I'll show you that in detail a little later in the other environment that I have. But essentially, you would want to have multiple data sets here. For this purpose, I'm gonna grab the quota data set here because I know that can work. Okay. And now I have quota of transaction data set here. Three-dot menu, create data set link. Okay. So we click on that. It will pull the UI, and on dataset one, you will see which one it is. Quota. Okay. I want to use date. This is sales rep, okay. And on transaction, it already linked by date because it found the same. And I also want to link sales rep, let's say. So I'm gonna grab rep, and here I'm gonna grab, like, the tool already filtered out all those fields because it believes that they cannot be linked together or used as common key. So here, sales rep right there. Now I can go ahead and link my data set. Okay. And from that, in the pivot, now I've got my two data set linked. As you can see, I can just go ahead and select quota data set, select any of the fields from the quota data set. That's not gonna make much sense because I don't have good data here, but you get the idea. I'm gonna grab measure value, and then on transaction data set, I see all the fields from my transaction data set. But as a reminder, I can only use the one that are linked. Since I've already used rep, I'm okay, but I'm gonna grab some measure value, and now it's going to pull up some data, which will not make much sense in this case, but that's how it would function. All right, moving on to the charts. So create a new tab here. As we can see, I have all these data sets available. And now what I can do when I create my chart, I can say, okay, I want to select data from these 2 data sets or only one, right? That's also possible. I don't need to use data from the 2 linked data set. I can just say, hey, I'm gonna grab the one from transaction only. So I'm going to do that. And here it will pull my chart. From my chart here, that's a good example to show some further formatting. We can see that we are using a field we created earlier, the formula field that doesn't contain the dollar symbol. So under the measure here, that's something you can equally do on the pivot. You go ahead and select format, and under the format, I'm going with currency type, and I will add a prefix here, which would be a $sign. Just go ahead, and now it's going to pull my $sign here. If you use on the chart, especially visible if you use a negative value, the chart is going to be upside down. So it's pretty convenient to change those amounts into positive values. The chart has some quick filtering capabilities. So if I just click there, I can remove that rep I don't want. So it's pretty intuitive. You will, if you hover over any columns, you will see some details. In this case, the dollar amount. You can also apply filter, of course, and you can sort your data. So if you want to sort that, I don't know, alphabetically, you can do that. Or if you wanted to sort it by amount, then you would do that from the measure, and you would say with the highest first. And now it's going to be sorted from the sales rep that have highest sales to the lowest sales. Cool. Okay. Real quick, I'll jump back to the presentation to wrap up with the slides that I have, and then I'd like to show you a more end-to-end scenario that will highlight all of these different features that we've seen during this presentation.
Julien, let's go ahead and do another polling question while you're transitioning there. So I'll do another poll. Go ahead and pop that polling question up. Thirty seconds left on the poll. All right, we'll go ahead and end the poll. Thank you, Julien. Let's continue.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so just to wrap up with the presentation, let's go ahead quickly onto the analytics home, which essentially would be the content management for your workbooks and datasets. So it's a pretty simple UI. As we can see at the top, we have a way to favorite any workbooks that you want. So you can just go ahead and select using the little star here, say, hey, this one I would like to have as favorite. So you just do that and it will show up here. Under the workbook tabs that is selected at the moment, you can see under this orange section, you can see all the workbooks in the system. You can filter them by, say, shared with me, system workbooks, etc. So you have several ways to share that. You can also create new workbook right from there. When creating a new workbook, you will be asked to obviously select which data set you want to create the workbook off of. Same goes if you select the dataset tab here, you will see all the datasets, similar functionality for filtering them, and similar functionality to create a new one. All right, I mentioned earlier that we have a tool from the dataset cache that allows you to manage the cache dataset. So it's the dataset cache management UI. You can find this from the dataset tab that I've shown earlier. I'll show you how to get there, and that will actually show you all of the available or all of the cache datasets that are in the system with their status and so forth. And from here, you have an option to basically disable the cache for the dataset you want if you see that they haven't been used in the past, I don't know, few days, whatever. Please know that if you disable a cache, you are not, I insist, you are not deleting a dataset. You are just saying, I don't want this cache anymore in the system, so I'm freeing up space so that I can cache other datasets. Right, and the last slide for this demo, before I go back to the of this deck, before I go back to the live demo, is the analytics portlet. So analytics portlet is on your analytics dash on your basic NetSuite dashboard. You have a way to add analytics portlet, so you can add up to 10 portlets from Workbook to your dashboard. If you go to personalize, you will see a little tab called analytics portlet, and there you can choose table, you can choose pivot, you can choose charts, you can customize the name, you can customize the size of it, namely on a pivot and table, you can say how many rows you want to show within the portlet. So maybe you want to show just a few rows, and then you have to scroll down. Maybe you want to show everything. It supports sorting and filtering for the pivot. So from the dashboard, you can now filter your data. From there, you can also drill down to your forms. So in this example that we have here, we can see that for sales rep, if I wanted to click on this sales rep, I can go there. If it was a transaction, I could do it as well. And you can also full screen it using this functionality, refresh the data, and also from the portlet, you can open the workbook that is associated with this portlet. All right. So that's basically all for the slides that I have. And now I would like to spend some time, the remaining time actually, until more of an end-to-end scenario here with more concrete example of how you can use all of the different tools that you've seen today. So let's give a second to this tab to load here. From my dashboard here, you will see essentially the pivot that we've just seen in the slide. Oh, hold on, you are not seeing that. Let me share the right screen. Sorry about that. There it is. Yes, that should be the instance of NetSuite. Yes. All right. So we can see the portlet that we've seen before on the slides. If you wanted to add more portlets, personalize analytics, and here you can add extra portlet. You can go ahead and set up. I have one here. When you set up a portlet, you select. You will have access to all of the workbooks. So these are the name of the workbooks, and these are the views. So this is the table, this is the pivot. You can see with the little icon. You can select any of these, and then select number of rows, custom name, etc., and save it. From the portlet itself, as I mentioned, you can apply some filter. In this case, let's say I want to show sales rep with sales greater than I don't know, $400,000 only, right? And that should filter my pivot accordingly, which is probably everybody has more, but you get the idea. I can remove that, and now let's start from the analytics home. Okay, so from the analytics home, as mentioned, this is my favorite workbook, favorited workbook. So in this case, I would like to have a look at the the sales workbook, we can see that I gave it a description. So this is a single source sales workbook with data broken down by various dimensions. Okay, so if I click this, I'm gonna have quite a comprehensive workbook that uses multiple tabs. Each tabs may use different data sets. We are also using linking, dataset linking there. We are also using calculated measure. We are also using conditional formatting and so forth. So when I open this workbook, I can see many tabs. One with pivot. If I move on, I have sales versus quota chart, which will take a second to load. Yeah, maybe there. There you go. So we can see that this data is broken down by my sales rep. For there is the quota amount and there is the sales amount when I hover over it, so I can see the difference very quickly. Here, I'm doing a sales by item pivot, which uses another data set, which is not linked in this case. Here I have a sales by customer. So similar data set, different view on the data set. So again, single source of truth data set concept here. Now I've got an inventory table, this pivot as well, sorry. This one is is created out of the item, an item data set, and so forth and so forth. And now if I wanted to create a new view, I can see all of the data sets that are available to me, right? And I can create a view out of them. All right, so now back to our linked data sets with the actual data sets that make more sense here. If I'm back to my UI that I showed you earlier, we have the quota. Again, here I use date, sales rep, and I have sales data sets with date and sales rep as well. So these are the common keys that I'm using, and I can from each of these data sets, I can be using the measure value. So my sales amount here. Okay, so now I can see how much my sales rep have been selling up to date, and I can compare it from the quota data set here, from the quota amount, and I can see what was the target, right? So we can see now that some is a little bit under the target by 1.8% or $8,000. So as you can see, there are a few things going on here. Also about the formatting. If you go to, for instance, sales amount, you have. I'll show you again the format section. I can choose how many decimal places I want to see. I want to show if I want to see thousands or millions, you know, so it will shrink my number to make it easier to read. I can show negative value differently, and other cool formatting options. From these two here, dollar amount and percentage difference, they are calculated measures. So let's have a look at them. If I go ahead and edit, I will see the calculation. So now for the calculation, I'm using the sales dollar amount from the sales data set. You can see it here. And the cool thing is that I can, of course, leverage the link data set capabilities here, right? So from the quota data set, I'm grabbing the quota dollar amount, okay? And now when I build that calculated measure, I can just apply, and now it was already applied. That's how you would do it. For the percentage difference, so this is where I want to insist a bit. Here I'm creating a percentage difference, so again, using the same fields, but my results is going to be in decimal value. I don't have a way here to say times 100. As you can see, if I do that, the definition is not valid. I cannot do this. So I need to use decimal value, okay? And when I apply, I can go ahead and use again my little formatting thingy, and I can turn that into a percentage. So the decimal value will automatically turn into a percentage without having to do anything. So this formatting option is relatively powerful, I would say, because it allows you in a few clicks to format to do powerful formatting. And the percentage difference in this case also leverages the conditional formatting option. So if I go to the conditional formatting here, manage conditional formatting, we'll see different rules now. Again, as mentioned, I need to use decimal value here because the measure that I'm using, I turned it from decimal to percentage in the pivot view. However, when you create, since it's just a formatting on the UI, you actually need to play with decimal value. So in this case, here I have a rule that says if it's under 0%, then red. If it's greater than 5%, green. If it's between 0% and 5%, then it's going to be yellow. And I applied this to my subtotals and grand total. And this is how it would look like in the tool. Okay. Similar options to dataset for sharing here. So you can go ahead and click the share button, select either role or employee. What is important to know when you share a workbook? When you're actually sharing a workbook, you are also sharing the datasets that are associated with the workbook. So you don't need to go through the exercise of, oh, this workbook is connected to 5 datasets. So when I share it with someone, I also need to share those 5 datasets with that person. No, this is happening at the same time. Again, that respects all the permissions and access controls. So if you get access to a workbook that contains data that you should not be seeing, then you won't have access to that workbook. So very similar to the dataset to avoid any issue with data leak or whatnot. You can, yes, maybe I haven't mentioned, but your pivot can be exported to CSV. So that's a pretty raw export for now. We also know that it's a very requested, heavily requested feature. So the version on Excel is something that we have on our backlog. But for now, you can export it to CSV format, and it can be quite handy to take the CSV if you have a large pivot. Take the CSV into a spreadsheet tool, for example, Excel, and it's relatively simple to using this CSV raw data to pivot them or to create a pivot out of this raw data in Excel. Okay, we are pretty much at the top of the hours that I have for this presentation, and I think that I covered everything that I wanted to. So,
all right.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent. So I'm going to do one more polling question, and then maybe we can spend a few minutes on any questions and answers from everybody. But I'll go ahead and launch the final polling question then. And then if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat window, and Julien can look at those questions and see if we can help. Sure, David, you can unmute to ask. That's fine.
Thanks, Corey.
30 seconds left. Yeah, 30 seconds left on the poll, by the way.
Oh, okay. I'll wait then until it wraps up.
Okay. About 10 seconds left on the poll. And I'll go ahead and end that now. Go ahead, David, with your question.
Great. First of all, thanks, Julien, for putting all this together for us. Really appreciate it. And it's also good to hear your voice again. I sat down at your roundtable at Suite World. And yeah, enjoyed talking to you then. But basically, 2 questions. So one, is there any way, any kind of mapping tool in the backlog to see kind of visualization of what like where fields are in transaction versus transaction lines, and specifically like in next or preceding transactions, if it's on the line level or the transaction level. There's some custom records, and I went through this exercise with support that took like 3 weeks for us to get to the point where I kind of cajoled them to spend a bunch of time essentially trial and erroring their way through the records browser to figure out where some of these fields actually were, because obviously there's fields that share the same name, but are the one that's actually relevant to the particular data set we were trying to create was stored in a place that was non-obvious. So yeah, I guess all I'm saying is the record browser is complicated and difficult to use. And is there any kind of tool that will help me use the browser more efficiently?
Yeah, I'm afraid that you are facing a problem that we know and we don't have a strong solution to. If you've already been through the record browser with support and so forth, I won't have much for that, much more than that. If you were at the roundtable, I'm pretty sure we've mentioned that there is this Excel file with some sort of mapping. Have you looked into that? I can look for it after and find it in the documentation. Do you remember looking up for that?
Yeah, let me see. I think you sent it to me. Let me see if I still have it.
Which records browser are you using exactly? Because there's the records catalog. Are you using that?
Here it is. I have his spreadsheet pulled up. I think what I'm referring to is actually within analytics itself. So not within the records catalog, but within a workbook when you're creating a data, or within a data set, when you're creating a data set and you're trying to browse for the fields per the specific record, right? So yeah, if you pull up any data set and you look to the left, as you're going through trying to find the correct, take a transaction data set, trying to figure out, okay, which is the table, or the object on which the fields I'm looking for exists. Is it stored on the line level, or is it stored at the transaction level? And then is it linked, and where is it linked to this transaction, right? Because it's almost like I need like a visualization, something that I could see that says, okay, I'm on this record. This is my starting point. I'm trying to go X number of joins, but that join has to begin from the line level versus the transaction level. That's what we ran into on one of these. It's like, oh, well, you actually have to go to the line level first and then go 2 joins over, instead of starting at the transaction level, then trying to go to that next record and then drop down to the line level, right? I have no way to know that in advance,
Yeah, I hear you, and I'm afraid that I don't have more than what you've said. This is definitely a challenge because that's heavily related to the data model, and unless you get familiar with the data model, which is not an easy task to do, you are experiencing it right now. There is no like shortcut, I would say. Now, depending on what you're trying to do, that sounds scary, but I hope that for more or like less complicated use cases, it's a little bit less challenging. But there are some rule of thumbs, right? If you look at header level transactions informations from say a sales order, you want to know a customer, or you want to know something like this, you would want to go to the transaction level. Now, if you look at on your sublist, when you have your item line level, right? So where you have on your transactions, when you're looking at your line level, this is something you want to go via the transaction line. So that would be a rule of thumb kind of here. And that's what I was trying to mention during the presentation, where in Safe Search, this is done differently because the model is actually more of a star schema type thing. So all the fields are pretty much accessible from the list. However, here the fields are actually where they really are in the tool. So you need to know first. You need to know first where you should go. So if you want to, like, if one of the question is how do I start from transaction or transaction line, I think this is relatively this is a bit easier. If it's something to do with your item, then you need to go to the item line, right? To the transaction line. If it has to do with the header level of the transaction, then transaction is okay. Now, if it has to do with accounting and your accounts and something like this, then you've got transaction accounting line here. That would help you to do that. But yeah, I'm pretty
so I can
that.
yeah, I can explain to you the exact use case, but basically, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to take up any more time. I do have one other quick question, and I'll just keep familiarizing myself as best as I can, because it sounds like you kind of understand what's happening here. You know, it's like if I have to start at the transaction or the transaction line, there's actually, like, if I'm going a couple joins away, there's certain fields that it's not obvious that that's actually a relationship between at the line level. It's not just an amount or, you know, quantity. It's it's an ID that's then multiple joins away. But if you don't start at the line level, you'll never get to it. If you start at the transaction body level, you'll fail. So anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll keep that to myself. The other question was, and this would probably be an easy one, is can you know how with dashboard portlets you can't do forward-looking graphing, like pipeline information that's upcoming? Can you do that with the analytics charts? Like, can I graph something into the future and then display it as a portlet?
No, neither. No, not yet. That would
be
more.
God, that's such a bummer. I was so hoping you were going to say yes.
So using more of a like pipeline you're talking about, or is it a specific?
Like, yeah. So if I have a date, like a date in the future, right, and I want to see the number of opportunities that are expected to close in February, March, et cetera, and I want to graph that over time. Can I do that?
Okay. So that would be more of a trend chart, or not trend, but you want to, if you have this data and you want to put, yes, I take that back.
Okay, great.
What I thought you were talking about was more of a forecasting type tool where, based on historical data, you're trying to forecast.
No.
Okay. But yes, if you have data in the future, you can definitely use them when you, so if you do, I don't know, talking more of a chart or more of a pivot here, do you know?
Chart, yeah, because basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows how to do this and it's just my error or my ignorance, but when I've tried to use trend graphs, the trend graph portlet on the dashboard to graph future data that exists in the future, it won't do it. It just lumps it all in whatever the current period is, like the month of January 2024.
I think that should not be some problematic to do that on the chart. If you achieve it in the chart on the workbook, then you can pull that into a portlet in your dashboard, no problem.
Beautiful.
So
okay.
the first step would be recreating your use case into a chart in the workbook, and if you get there, then you're good to go.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of a limitation that because the data would be in the future, right? And like after today, essentially, that it would create any sort of problem. So you can give it a go. Sorry for confusion.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Because the forecasting thing is something we are being asked quite often, so I somehow made a shortcut here.
No worries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for answering those questions, Julien. For the sake of time, I want to move on to our tips and tricks, but there are a few questions in the chat window. Julien, would you be okay taking a look at those and answering through the chat window?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And amazing presentation. Thank you for taking the time to be here for our user group and our members. It was very, very valuable. So thank you so much for your presentation, Julien.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. So I'll stop sharing, yeah?
Yep. And we'll go ahead and we'll turn it over to Margie Caminos at this point for our tips and tricks. Are you still there, Margie?
I am still here. Just
Okay.
trying to go to share my screen. I had to bring it up in slideshow mode.
Okay.
And we are now, I'm sure most of your brain, can you all see my screen at this point?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, great.
it's visible.
All right. Wow. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Julien. We are going from college level now down back to elementary school. And since your brains are probably pretty full at this point, I hope that this will be sort of just a refresher for many of you and provide some information if you're new to NetSuite. If you're not new to NetSuite, maybe this will just be some reminders for you. So I'm going to be talking about global search shortcuts and other shortcuts. And I'll be talking to you for the next about 15, 20 minutes. So we'll probably be going to about 11:30. The first thing I wanted to bring up is a fairly new option that's available under Set Preferences Analytics tab. Many of you might have noticed when you're in, as you know, when you go up here, can you see my cursor first of all?
Yes.
Okay, great. When you do on any page, you'll see the global search box where you can enter in any information. And if you've noticed when you've put in something recently, and I don't know if this is the last 6 months or 12 months, suddenly you're getting a lot more information than you'd previously gotten. And that's because what NetSuite recently added was this current page results. And I've sort of ignored it through the time going, I have no idea what that is until I sort of dug into it for this meeting. And this is a new preference that's automatically enabled under the Set Preferences Analytics tab, page search. And what this does is it basically provides your hierarchical levels for your breadcrumbs is what I call it within the navigation menus. So you can find exactly where something came from. So before, where you might have just seen product release up here, you now see, oh, I'm actually getting to it from, it turns out that this is a custom tab I've created on my system, and then under Margie, and then product release. So this is incredibly valuable. So if you want to make a change, or if you realize you have something in too many places, you know exactly where to go. So I was kind of impressed once I realized what it does. And additionally, if you only want to see this bottom portion, current page release results, you can do an Alt-Shift+G when you're in the global search results, and it'll just show this bottom portion. Moving on now, sort of the global search. There's a number of options, the shortcuts that you can do to find various records, pages, searches, etc. I've put an asterisk next to what I think is the most valuable one, which is the prefix. So I'll be getting into that in the next slide, and it finds specific record types, save searches, reports, pages. The % and underscore are wildcards. The or allows you to look for inclusively multiple text strings, and the blank is an implied and. The + includes inactive records. One thing I wanted to state is that using basically at the SQL level within Oracle database, it's using a contains versus a starts with. And so for an example, if you're looking for RMA 1214, NetSuite would return cases like CA, which is the case identification number, the document number, and then the RMA number. So prefixes, the first one I want to look into, this I use all the time, and I've been using NetSuite. I've been an admin for over 20 years. I use this constantly. It'll return and filter down your records. So if you have C : in your global search, it'll say returns cases, contacts, and customers, or I returns item, images, and invoices. Of course, it depends what term you're using. So if your term is obviously an invoice number, if you type I : before looking for a specific invoice, it's not going to return images and things like that. INV would further refine that search and just return invoices and inventory items, etc. So this is really one of the most used features. Additionally, if you aren't already aware of it, if you type in help : it automatically will find the topic in the help center, NetSuite Help Center. Under CU, returns customers, I have this little asterisk because under Home Set Preferences Analytics tab, you can say whether or not you want to include leads and prospects when you're returning customers. So that's this checkbox that you can check. This is just a short portion of what you can use. It's almost endless of what you can look for. PAGE : will return not just pages, but also reports. The next thing I wanted to talk about that I use sometimes is the includes inactive checkbox. So if you go over to that Set Preferences Analytics tab, there's include inactives in global and quick search. By default, it is not checked, which is good, because the difference is if you have it not checked and you look for something, here's an example, I : front panel, notice that it returned 3 results. But if I use a plus sign as the suffix, notice that I've got 4 because this first item is actually inactive. So the question is there a way to actually show only inactives? No, unless you do. The workaround is you do a saved search, and in the saved search, you can actually use as one of your filters that you're only looking for inactive records. The next one I wanted to talk about is the wildcard. So this is a % versus in Microsoft or in Office products, it's an asterisk. So it'll match any string of any length, including 0, where the underscore matches any single character. So here below, I've got some examples of what would provide, what type of results would be provided. And you can just read through those, and we'll be posting this presentation. I know the recording usually could take up to 10 days, but the presentations, the actual PowerPoints, should be up there within the week. Some other global search tips are this multiple strings, the OR. So if you're looking for max or matches, you can just put an OR between it and it'll find the results for all those searches inclusively. If you want exact text matches only, you can either put that in double quotes or a backslash, and it'll find the only, exact matches. The quotation marks or backslashes are not required for numeric keywords, as these searches return only exact matches. The last one here is something I've sort of found by default using keywords. If you have a keyword or a search term that's less than 3 characters long, sometimes NetSuite has a problem finding it. So if you only have something that's 2 characters, let's say you created a vendor and it was only 2 characters, a way to ensure that you will be able to find it is use like a vendor. So you'd say V : right here, SC, and it kind of thinks at that point it's like 3 characters. But the best practice is to make sure all your records have at least 3 characters to start. Navigate quickly to NetSuite pages and reports. That's using what I had mentioned before, the page : like page : cust, will return a list of pages with the name cust in any NetSuite pages or reports. Or the next one, return a single result in edit mode, capitalize the first letter of the search prefix. So here, if I had done capital EMP and put in an employee's name, Beth, it opens this employee's record in edit mode. Same thing with capital INV : I115 would return that invoice in edit mode. And then finally on this, I wanted to talk about the including custom fields or custom records in global searches. First thing I wanted to do is bring up a Suite Answers that you can refer to, 8403. When you're in a custom field, there's a checkbox that says global search. If you check that checkbox, it'll actually include that field when you do a global search. However, not all fields are available for global search. So if it's grayed out, then it's not available. For example, checkbox, it is not available for global search. For custom records, you can set global search for the record itself on that record field, but not by the custom fields within the custom record. So other shortcuts, moving on from the global search, use your browser, Control F, keyboard shortcut for find or search in your browser. It's excellent for using on filters and search results, and I'll be showing an example in the next page. It's really useful when creating a saved search and reports to search for specific fields or filters to include. And it's also really good for finding fields and search results on each page. So, however, on reports, it's not always all that useful. Sometimes it'll work, and I don't know if the report only has one page. Oh, and if you're finding fields and search results, it's only by the page. You know how you might have 10 pages or more. So you'd have to go to each page and use the Control F. But on reports, I highly recommend using the find field, which is found where I've got the arrow pointing down. That is much more consistent as far as being able to find a field in a report results. So here's an example of using Control plus F, Control F in your browser as your browser find. So here I've got an example where I've got a report actually, and in the filter over here, you can see that this is for a specific company. But if I click on that drop down arrow, I might have thousands of entries. However, once that drop down pops up, if I do a Control F and look for, like I did here, comms, it'll just bring me right to those specific records. So there's also shortcuts for saved search results. When you're in direct, you know how you can do direct list editing on many of them. So Alt plus X to edit the first direct editable field. Control Z, which I use quite a bit, is to undo the value of the selected field. So you accidentally entered something in and you go, oh, undo. Control Z will do that. Tab will move right through the editable fields in a row and onto the next row. Shift plus Tab will move left. Enter to move down through editable fields in a specific column. Shift plus Enter to move up. And then this last one, which is really pretty cool, although it can be dangerous, Control plus Shift to change several fields at one time. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So here, in this example, I've brought up a number of cases that I have, and notice that the ship date over here under ship date is 12/12 for several of these records. Well, gosh, it really wasn't 12/12. I want to change it to 12/13. And so what I would do is I would first check that the field is editable. You see this pencil field up here, that means that it is editable. So I can do this. I can change multiple rows for field value at one time. And then I select the first field. And then I hit Shift and select the last row that I want to change. And I hope you can all see this dashed lines or dashed border around those records. And then I go back to the top record and I change the date. So here I would actually say 12/13. And then the result would be all at once, all those records were changed. Now, when I say this can be dangerous, it's because I could have done the same thing and then hit delete, and I would have deleted all those records. So that's why I'm saying you need to be careful. And this also works with a drop down. Like if I had a status here of whether it was an open or closed case, I could have selected the first, I could have used the drop down and selected maybe closed and closed them all at once. There are also a number of shortcuts for date fields that you can use in inline editing, online forms, and transaction forms. These are case sensitive. So the ones I use this quite frequently, T for today's date, or I use quite often plus or minus to increase or decrease a day. And I'm not going to go through these, but you have these to refer to in the future when you go back to this presentation. The one place that I've found, I'm sure there's plenty of other places that it does not work, is when you use the reconcile account statements page, which is a replacement for the bank rec. And I think it's because it was probably a third-party product or module that was purchased, and it does not work for that. There are shortcuts for entering transaction data too. So if you're in a, let's say a sales order or an invoice, and you've got the header information, and then you've got the sub list below, enter, if you're in a field in the top portion or in the body, what I call the body, and you hit the enter key, it's going to save the transaction. But if you're in the sub list and you hit the enter key, it's going to go to the next line while you're in the sub list. So the tab to move the cursor between fields and buttons, spacebar to check or unclear a checkbox, and pressing and holding control while clicking with your mouse to select multiple choices in a list. So if there's a drop-down list, you just hit, press and hold control and click all the entries you want. This last one I think is really cool. The amounts fields support addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So for example, you're in an amount field in a transaction record or in a deposit, and you put in 10 plus 15 and it'll do the calculation for you. It doesn't work in all transactions, and I'm really bummed that it doesn't work in inventory adjustments, because that's where I could really use it. But it doesn't work there. But it's very useful when doing a bank deposit that was purchased on, you have a product that was purchased online with a credit card where the bank deposit doesn't match what the customer actually paid. So, and you need to assign something to cash back. So I've got an example of what this would look like. So here, the customer bought an instrument for this amount, $658 and some change, but the bank deposit was actually $641 and some change, because the merchant processor took fees out to go to the credit card company. So you go to the deposit and you check it just like you normally would. That's the step one. Then you go to this cash back tab here, and you say, you can either figure it out by hand, or, with the calculator and enter it, but instead you can just put those figures right in here, say subtract, and then the next NetSuite will figure it out, and there it is. And then you don't have to use a calculator or a piece of paper, if those of you are still using that. So that's all that I really wanted to share today. I'm sure some of you have some incredible aha moments, shortcuts that work for you, and you can put those in the chat window. If you have any questions about any of these things that I've shared with you today, you can contact me at mcomninos@plantscan.com. I thank you very much for your time.